What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another fabulous day with Adobe Live. I hope that you are all doing well. If you missed out on yesterday, you missed out on a lot. Okay, we are here joined with Lightroom product manager Ben Warde as he takes us through his editing workflow and answers really any of the questions that y'all have about the new features in the app. So, Ben, welcome back to day two. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, yes. And let us know in the chat if you joined yesterday. And also let us know where you're joining from. So whether you are on YouTube or Behance, we want to send y'all a warm welcome. If you have any questions throughout this entire chat, drop them in the chat box. We did have a really interactive session yesterday. If you missed it, you can catch it on Behance, but also you can catch it on YouTube as well. So just let us know where you're calling from. I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. Ben, where are you joining us from?
I am joining this from Alameda, California.
Yeah. Alameda, California. How's the weather for y'all right now?
It's lovely. It's
Oh,
sunny. It's warm,
I
but
wish
not Arizona warm.
Exactly. I was gonna say
It's
this
Alameda warm.
this week is a bit cooler, but last week we had hit 112, and so it's absolutely ridiculous, and we're probably gonna see 120 soon or whatever else. So I'm gonna mindset wise, I'm wishing I was where you're at. But awesome. Yes, let us know where y'all are joining from. And then before we get started, I want to remind you guys that if you missed the Adobe Font Show this morning, do not worry. You can check out the replay on YouTube or Behance. So I think that we can go ahead and start to talk a little bit, Ben. If you can let us know, what did we cover yesterday and what do we have prepared for today?
Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday, we took a look at this project that I'm working on here, which is a collection of photos from an area of Alameda that used to be a naval air station, a military base, now decommissioned. Lots of interesting sort of weird things still in existence down at this former military installation, whatever that is, and really beautiful things like the USS Hornet, decommissioned aircraft carrier. And then we looked at the workflow for kind of going through and picking out some of these photos. And we looked at some of the new features in our most recent release of Lightroom, which came out this week on Monday. So just a few days ago. The most exciting one for me is these video features. So you can now in Lightroom use the same editing controls that you use on your photos, you can now use on your videos as well. So this is what this looked like captured out of the camera, and this is what we made it look like with our video editing in Lightroom yesterday. So we looked at those things. We took a real quick little peek at a couple of other new editing features in Lightroom new this week. One of them was red eye removal, which has finally come to Lightroom here and can be done automatically using AI. Very cool. And the other was the adaptive presets, which we took a little peek at, and I won't say too much more about now because we're going to look at all of the preset topics a little more in depth in just a moment. So coming up today, we'll look at a little bit more around editing, and specifically we're going to look at kind of batch editing workflows, copying and pasting edit settings between photos, using the preset features, including all of the new preset features that have been introduced in this release, making your own presets. And we're also going to take a look at sharing your work out in a variety of ways. So that's what's on the agenda.
Yay. We have a full agenda. I'm really excited. And I do agree. Yesterday, the most exciting part for me was probably the video component. I don't shoot a lot of videos, but now I want to.
That's exactly the same for me. I do a lot of drone photography, and I've always just used it as a still camera because I didn't want to have sort of another whole video workflow as well. But now that I can edit these videos in Lightroom, I've started shooting video as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So I'm excited for today. I hope y'all are excited. Let us know in the chat if you are ready. And then again, if you have any questions for Ben, this is your time to ask them. So make sure you put them on in the chat, whether you are on Behance or you are with us in YouTube. We'll make sure to get to as many questions as we can. Awesome, Ben. I think we're ready to start to dive in.
All right. Thank you. So I'll say one other thing before I get to the good stuff. as Adara said, I'm a product manager on the Lightroom team at Adobe. And what that means, and I said this yesterday, I'll say it again, it's worth repeating. I might not necessarily be quite the caliber of artist that you might be used to seeing here on Adobe Live, but I know a lot about Lightroom. And so I really encourage you to ask any questions that you have in the chat. I am here for you today, and you can really kind of steer this presentation towards what you want to learn about. So ask your questions. As I said yesterday, if your question sounds like it's going to be kind of relevant and of interest to everybody, I'll answer it right now. And if it feels like something that's a little bit more specific to you, I'm happy to answer it via email. Contact me over email. I think yesterday we were able to have our chat moderator put my email address in the chat. So if we can do that again, that'd be great.
Beautiful.
So yeah, ask your questions, and let's make this as valuable for you as possible.
Awesome.
And with that, I'll jump in. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something, Adara?
I was going to say we already have a question.
Oh, great. Well, hey, hit me with the question.
And I want to throw it out there now because it has to do with video before we dive into what we have planned for today. But somebody asked, will syncing for video be coming for Lightroom Classic or from Lightroom Classic to Lightroom?
So, and I said this, I gave this stock reply yesterday to another question about future plans, which is that I can't speak in any specific way to what we might do or not do in the future. As I said yesterday, of course, we're always listening to our customers. You are why we are here and why we're doing this and why we're building this product. And we want to make it what you want and need. So we're always listening to our customers and their needs. Having said that, that particular undertaking, syncing video from Classic, might be a little bit tricky since unlike Lightroom, Classic does not sync original files. It syncs proxies for the stills, smart previews. They're reduced size DNGs. So an equivalent mechanism would need to be developed for video. I'm just thinking out loud here, but in any case, we'll have to see what the future brings. But I think the takeaway point here is, we want to best serve our customers. So whatever that ends up entailing, that's what we'll try to pursue.
Perfect. And then one more question, and I know we covered this in yesterday's video, but if we can just kind of reiterate, what is the difference between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom?
Yeah, I would encourage you to go back and watch the beginning of yesterday's recording, where I talked about that a little bit more in depth, complete with a slide deck. And I'm not going to subject you all to that again in case we have anybody who was already watching yesterday. So I'll answer that question as quickly as possible in two different ways. And one is there are a zillion different sort of feature differences, but what makes it tricky in comparing them is that neither of them is a subset or superset of the other. Lightroom is not Lightroom Classic Lite or anything like that. Lightroom does tons of stuff that Lightroom Classic doesn't do. Likewise, Lightroom Classic does stuff that Lightroom doesn't do. So it is a tricky comparison on a feature by feature basis. You can go to the internet, you can do an internet search for these differences, and you can see this blow by blow feature list of which has what and so on. My more general answer is that the two biggest differences between them are in Lightroom, everything that you do syncs to the cloud, all your original photos, all of the work that you do with them. This means everything's backed up all the time. This means you can work seamlessly across all of your devices. You can fully and completely access all of your work in Lightroom on your phone, for example. And you can work from multiple computers as well, right? It doesn't have to be just a computer and mobile. You could work on a desktop at home and a laptop on the road, and everything just works automatically between them. Whereas Lightroom Classic is focused very much on a single computer, on local storage, on file folder, hard disk organization, and that sort of thing. And the other is that Lightroom Classic is, and this is sort of a philosophical difference, Lightroom Classic is very focused on kind of providing tools to help make your work easier, whereas Lightroom is a little more focused on providing solutions that remove the need to do the work in the first place. That might be a little bit hand wavy, but that's sort of a kind of a philosophical underpinning of the two of them, I would say. I hope that was helpful in some way.
I think so. So yes, again, if you want to go in a little bit deeper, Ben did a wonderful just kind of recap of everything he just talked about. But you can watch yesterday's live again on Behance or YouTube to catch all of that information. And I know that person asked, is one better than the other? I think it really just depends on what you're shooting and what your preferences are between both platforms. I tend to navigate towards Lightroom, Lightroom Classic. I want to move back towards Lightroom, to be honest, after these new features. But I think it really just depends on what your need is for both of those platforms.
Yeah, if we could decisively say that one was better than the other, then we could stop selling the other one.
Exactly.
Right? But the reality is, as with many things in life, what's best for you depends on your needs, right? If, for example, you are, a very high volume photographer, and you're shooting, you're, I don't know, a wedding photographer, and you're shooting 10,000 photos every weekend. And once you're done with those photos from a given job, you archive it off and you don't necessarily care about it again. Maybe a system that stores all of your original photos in the cloud isn't really appropriate for you, right? Whereas if you're someone who, if you're like me, I'm a hobbyist photographer. I'm not doing jobs that I stop caring about later. I'm always interested in all of the photos I've taken, and I love being able to have them with me and to be able to work on them from anywhere, right? And we talked about this a little bit yesterday too, but it's kind of that sort of everything everywhere experience is very difficult to convey the value of in a venue like this. But when you're, the first time you're kind of out with someone and you're like, let me show you this picture that I took 5 years ago, which I can totally do because I have it right here in my pocket, because I have all of my photos right here, it's pretty amazing. And the ability to, get tired of working at your desk and go put your feet up on your couch and do something, or the ability to do, work in downtime on your phone when you're just out somewhere else, or, I don't know, it's very cool. So
absolutely.
There's pros and cons to each.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I think with that, let's go ahead and get started. And then as questions come in, we can answer them throughout the live.
Okay, great. Also one last addendum to that previous question. As Lightroom product manager, I can, with no bias whatsoever, actually say that Lightroom's better.
With no bias whatsoever.
No bias at all. What do you mean? Of course Lightroom's better. No, I'm going to stick with my previous answer. Okay, let's take a look at it. And so, related to that question, we here are obviously in Lightroom here today. So some of what I'm going to be showing you today is relevant to both Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, and some of it is specific just to Lightroom. So for the most part, the editing things that I'm showing you, except for the video stuff, is the same in both. Okay. And then there'll be a few other things that are specific just to Lightroom. So, okay, let's jump into it. And the first thing I want to show, I'm going to move away from this project we were working on yesterday, and I'm just going to move over to some demo files that I have here, just to show a couple things quickly. So we have in Lightroom, and this was introduced last fall, and this is in Lightroom Classic 2, of course, as are all of the editing features. We introduced the select subject and select sky masks. So, and in fact, we kind of revamped the whole masking local adjustment experience in Lightroom. So it's really cool and really capable. And the select subject and select sky masks both use artificial intelligence to find the subject or sky in your photo and mask it for you automatically. So if I wanted to mask off my subject here to maybe bring up the exposure, just on my subject or something like that, instead of, taking the brush and trying to paint in a meticulous mask, which would take me forever, I just click on select subject, and Lightroom, hello, it's not showing me the overlay. There we go. Lightroom masks the subject for me, and I can go ahead and make whatever kind of adjustment I want to make. I'm going to make a very pronounced adjustment here. Obviously, this is not what I would really want my photo to look like, but for the sake of what I'm about to show you next, I want the edit to be very easily identifiable. So let's just pretend this is what I want it to look like. So this is not a new feature this week. This was introduced last fall. Select sky, select subject, both very cool. Okay, let me now use that. That's not what I want. As a segue in here to the next thing that I want to talk about. It looks like my little thumbnail didn't update there. Hello? Hello? There we go. Okay, so now that segues nicely into a new feature in this release that we just released this week, which is, what if I want to copy this edit that I did onto other photos? Mm-hmm. Of course, you can copy and paste edits between photos in Lightroom. That's not anything new, but in the previous version of Lightroom, before this week, the select sky and the select subject masks, you could copy and paste them, but when you pasted them onto photos, that mask was not recomputed for the photo you were pasting it onto. So I'm gonna, let me open this one back up and edit, and I'll show you something here in case you're not aware of this already. If I wanna copy edit settings from a photo to paste to another, I can just press Command C. I'm on a Mac. If I were on Windows, it would be Control C. I can do that here in the detail view with the edit controls open, or not. I can do it here in the grid view as well. Command C, and it tells me copy edit settings. Okay, so I did it. But if I want to copy just some of the edit settings and not all of them, here in the edit controls, I can go into the 3-dot menu and I can select choose edit settings to copy. So in the case of this photo, and for the purposes of what I'm showing here, I only want to copy masking. So I'm going to select none from everything, and I'm going to check the masking checkbox, and I'll click copy. Okay, now I want to paste it to a bunch of other photos. I want to do this one, and I'm just going to command click to select a bunch of different photos there. I want to paste this mask onto all of these photos. So what would happen prior to this week is I would paste and I would see nothing, like nothing would happen. And if I went into one of the photos and I went and I looked at masking, it would show the mask there, but it would say, hey, this mask needs to be recomputed for this photo, and it have a big button that I'd have to click, and I'd click it, and then the artificial intelligence would look at this photo, find the correct mask for the subject, and do what I wanted it to do, which meant that it's not a great batch workflow, right? Because for every photo that I pasted it to, I needed to open them one by one, open the masking controls, and click on recompute, right? So that was not great. So in this release now, Lightroom will automatically recompute the AI mask for every photo you paste it to. So if I press Command V now to paste onto these photos, it'll say, yeah, do you want to do this? Yep, that's what I want. And it'll say pasting. And then it's saying, okay, I'm updating the masks. So right now it's recalculating the subject mask for each of those other photos. And so now it's actually done it. Now it's actually pasted on those masking settings with the correct mask for each of those photos. So it's obviously, it's not just using the shape of this mask from this person here, because that wouldn't work on these other photos. It needs to refine the subject in each of these other photos. So that is a new addition here, which greatly improves any kind of batch workflow that involves the AI masks. This feature, this ability that I just showed, is also leveraged in the adaptive presets, which I showed yesterday and which I'll now just dive back into just for a moment here while I take a sip of water and ask if there are any questions.
Perfect. No, I think that is a phenomenal. Sam said fancy. That is really fancy. I do Super like fancy. That. That I do really like how it just automatically does that for you. So that I do a lot of batch editing myself. And so this is really nice to know that in the cases when I do have smaller libraries, I can utilize this select subject or select sky and just kind of copy and paste. It's really nice.
I'm going to undo that because
yes.
Yeah. And let me go in here, and I think I probably edited this a little bit yesterday when I was showing the adaptive presets, and I'm going to go, this is the versions feature. I won't talk about it too much because we talked about it yesterday, but this is a little bit like, if you're familiar with Classic, this is a little bit like snapshots and history combined. I'm just going to take this back to my kind of starting point version that I had there. Okay. So I'll really quickly show adaptive presets again, and then we'll get into some of these new features with presets. So the adaptive presets are this new class of preset that we have in Lightroom that leverage those AI masks, right? So the first two kind of groups that we're shipping with here are Adaptive Sky and Adaptive Subject, each of which uses the Select Sky or Select Subject mask to apply edit settings just to part of the photo. So this is really cool. I'll do this here. I'll roll over. You see that little progress bar while it calculates the mask for the sky. And this is a super neat feature because it allows you to leverage the power of these AI masks without actually needing to bother, going into masking and creating these things manually. So you can really leverage that capability just with a single click through presets, which is very, very cool. Likewise, we have the Select Subject here, which will do the same on your subject. So I find something I like. I think yesterday I picked sunrise, although actually this was sunset, but I sort of think sunrise works better in this one. And then I can look at it, and here's another new feature in this release now, and I mentioned this, I believe, briefly yesterday as well, which is the preset amount slider. Yes. So you can now tweak the intensity of presets that you apply. And this is not just for the adaptive presets, this is for any sort of preset. So I can say, oh, I like that, but I think it's a little over the top. I can kind of pull it down, or I can say, no, actually, I want it more than that. Let's get it really sunrisey. There we go. I'll do this one for the subject, and I think that's actually way too much, and so I'll take it down a little bit. But this is great because this allows you to tweak any sort of preset that you apply and kind of personalize it to what you want and to what your photo needs without having to go in and manually move each of the individual sliders that are used in the preset. So really, really cool little addition there.
I love that so much. I actually was just having a conversation with a friend maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they use a different platform to edit their photos, and they were trying to use Lightroom. And they put a preset, they're like, I can't adjust the intensity of this. And I was like, yeah, I know you can't. They're like, why not? And now I can say, hey.
Now you can.
But that's really great because whenever I would use presets, I would try to go into my settings and adjust it. But at least this way I can, if I want less or I want more, I can kind of add to my overall workflow. So that's really dope there.
Yeah. And any of these edit presets all that presets are a saved collection of edit settings, right? So you were always able to go in and adjust it, but slider by slider, right? If I wanted to just bring down this overall effect, now all of a sudden I'd be looking at going in and tweaking, however many sliders are used in the preset. So being able to just do it with a single slider is pretty cool.
Yes, I agree.
So, well, I don't know what just happened there. That's a bug. Who can I talk to about this? Oh my gosh. Okay, let me talk about one other thing with presets. I'll use a different photo here. And this is not, let's try this one actually. This is not new to this release. This came out, I don't remember, last fall maybe. But since we're talking about presets, it's worth mentioning. And it's a really cool feature, and it's unique to Lightroom. So this is, the preset things that I've been showing here just now, these are not unique to Lightroom. These are in Lightroom Classic as well. But what I'm about to show you is unique to Lightroom. And the reason well, let me show it to you first, and then I'll tell you why it's a feature that Lightroom has and Lightroom Classic doesn't, which is that we have this type of preset up here called recommended presets. So I'm here in the preset panel. We have 3 different tabs up here. Yours is the ones that there's sort of just some basic pre-installed ones that everybody gets. There's any that I made or created myself or saved from other sources or imported. Maybe I bought presets from someone else and imported them. All of that stuff shows here. Premium are available, are presets that we ship with, but that are available only to subscribers. So we do have a free offering of Lightroom on mobile. which includes like the basic presets, but doesn't include these premium ones. And then we have this recommended presets. So let me click there and go into there. And what this is doing is this is using artificial intelligence to look at my photo and pick out presets that it thinks will work particularly well with my photo. And what it's doing here is within Lightroom, we have this whole, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but we have this whole photo sharing community built directly into Lightroom called Discover. So I can click here in the upper left, and this takes me into Discover. And these are some some photos that we're featuring right now that people have submitted. I could look at For You and see photos from people that I'm following. And what's really cool about photos and any Lightroom customer can submit photos to Discover, can share photos here to the Discover section. And what's really neat about these is that when they're submitted, the edits are submitted along with them. So you see this before after. So I've just rolled over here and seen the before after of the photo, before after of that one. And then if I click on it, I can actually, there we go. I can actually see the exact editing steps that the photographer took in order to achieve their final look. I can click play and it'll walk through the photographer's edit. And I can really see specifically what they did to achieve this look in their photo. So it's this really amazing kind of learning resource here in Lightroom. But what's also really neat is that if the photographer who submitted the photo has enabled this, I can save their final edits as a preset to use on my own photos later. So if I'm here and I, see a look that I really like, I can click Save as Preset, and I can name it if I want and so on. I'll just go with the default name. So what is this one? Monblum. I'll say Save. Now that's been saved to my presets over here in the Yours section in Saved from Discover. So here's the one that I saved just now, which I could apply to that's not doing much on that particular photo, but which I could apply to my photos if I wanted. So that is really neat. And what this also means is that here in the Discover section, there are however many hundreds of thousands of photos that have been shared along with their edit settings. And so what this feature that I'm showing here, this recommended presets feature, is doing is it's looking at my photo, and then it's looking through the hundreds of thousands of photos that are in the Discover section, and it's looking for photos that are similar to my photo. And then when it finds photos that are similar to my photo, it looks at the edits for those photos, and it says, well, if these photos that are similar to your photo were edited in this way, then maybe your photo would also look good if it were edited in this way. And so it's a really quick way to find presets that might work well with your particular photo. And of course, the reason that this is in Lightroom and not Lightroom Classic is that Lightroom has this cloud connection that enables this built-in photo sharing community, and that's what these presets are pulled from. So these are all kind of looking, some of these look a little over the top to me. But I can also do things like, if I'm like, oh, I sort of like that, but that's not quite what I'm looking for, I can click on the More Like This button, and then it'll look for more presets that are similar to that one, that specific one that I clicked on. What I can also do is I can sort of filter it kind of by category. So I can say, well, okay, these are all a little bit over the top for me. Just show me ones that are a little subtler. And then it'll say, okay, and then now it'll find ones that are a little more toned down. And I can say, ooh, look at that one. I really like that one. Maybe I only want to see black and white ones. And so on. So there's a variety of categories here that I can kind of have it filtered. So that's another really cool kind of preset feature. Okay. Let me know if there's any questions. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of
keep going. I'll let you know we have any questions. I think we're good right now in the chat. I'm not seeing anything new. But again, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat box. Whether you are on Behance or YouTube, we'll make sure to get to those questions.
Okay. So let's talk about batch editing here.
Yes.
And I'll go back to, get out of there. There we go. I'll go back to this project that I was working on. And so as I showed yesterday, we now have the ability to edit videos in Lightroom. And as I mentioned yesterday, when I say edit videos, I'm not talking about stringing video clips together in a timeline. You'd go to maybe Adobe Premiere or Adobe Rush for that. But if you have a single video clip that you want to share out to social media or something like that, you can now use the same edit controls that you use on your photos on your videos and make it look its best. And you can also, we looked at this yesterday as well, you can trim heads or tails off of the video just to focus onto the part that's sort of most important. And so now we have these, kind of beautiful looking videos here in Lightroom. Now, one of the things that's great about being able to do this and use these same controls on both photos and videos is that you can achieve a consistent look between your photos and videos. So let's say I have this video that I was just showing. I also have a still photo of roughly the same thing from roughly the same angle. And I want to make them look, kind of as similar to each other as I can. I want the same kind of look on both of them. Well, I can, press Command C and then I can press Command V over here to paste. And that's not really going to work out very well for me in this case. Well, why not? I'm going to undo that for a second. Let's go back in. This is the still photo and it's unedited. Let's go and look at the video. And I'm going to show the before of the video. That's the before view. Well, their starting point was very different, right? Yep. The video is much lower contrast and so on. So those edits that I made to the video are not translating exactly to the photo because the starting point of each of them was so different. Yep. So I'll show you what I'm going to do in this case. Before I do that, I'll just mention before, after, in case anybody doesn't know already, there is a button for it down here. I can click, there's the before, and I can click it again to show the after. But what I usually do is I use the keyboard shortcut, which is the / key. So I can just, if I press it, it switches it to before and it stays there until so if I press it and release it, it switches it to the before view, it stays there until I press and release again. But I can just also press and hold. So if I press and hold, it stays in the before view until I release the button. And then it goes back to the after view. So that's nice. And actually, since we're talking about this, let me switch over to my phone for a second. We'll look at the same video. Of course, those video editing features that I showed on the computer are also available here on the phone. If you want to see your before after on the phone, it's just a press and hold on the photo. Which is not working. So maybe that's a bug with video. Whoop, what am I doing? Let's see how it works here. Hold on. So it works with photos, doesn't work with video. That's something for me to take back to the team here. But you get the idea. If you're working with a photo, you can press and hold. That's a little bit hidden here on mobile, so I just like to mention it. If you'd like to see that before view, there's the before, and then release to go back to your after. That's obviously not an edit that I want. Okay. We also mentioned this yesterday as somebody asked about histograms. You can see the histogram up there, and that is shown or hidden by doing a 2-finger tap on mobile. So actually, I don't want that up there right now. So I'll do tap to hide that histogram there. Okay, let's go back to Lightroom on my computer and talk about making the photo look like the video. We do have the histogram here on desktop as well, by the way, if anybody wants that in the 3-dot menu there, show histogram. Okay, we covered that yesterday though. Yes. So, okay, so this is so much higher contrast than than this already. I can't copy and paste those settings directly. Well, let me use these settings manually to see if I can kind of dial in on the same look. One thing I definitely can do here is sort of a vignette, because I did that on the video. Okay, that's helping a little, and I warmed it up a little, so let me do that as well. Okay, maybe I didn't do that. You know what? I did that with color grading. Okay, I don't want to have to try to replicate all the color grading here, but manually, but they did kind of start in the same place in terms of color. So why don't I copy just the color grading instead of copying all of the settings that were making the still too contrasty? And so I showed that a moment ago, how you can specify what edit settings you want to copy. So I'll go in here and I'll start with none, and then I'll open up color and I'll choose just color grading. and then I'll say copy, and I'll go to my photo and I will say paste. That's Command V to paste. And that's looking pretty good, a little bit oversaturated maybe. So maybe I'll bring down kind of the saturation overall. And that I think those blues in the shadows are looking a little too green here. So I'm going to go down to my shadows color wheel here. I'm going to grab the hue on the outside of the circle. I'm just going to move it a little touch towards blue and away from green. I think that probably helps. And now here's another new feature that I showed yesterday, which is the compare view. So I'll go into compare and I'll select that other photo I'm working on. And now I can see the two of them kind of side by side. And I can see I've gotten pretty close here. And I've achieved quite a similar look across both of the photos, across both the photo and the video. So very cool to be able to finally do that with videos here in Lightroom.
That's really cool. And then I have a quick question with that as well. When you're copying your settings, if I wanted to do, does it save whatever changes you made to what you're copying, if that makes sense?
Right. I think I understand your question. You mean,
does it automatically go back to reselecting everything that you had selected previously?
That is a great question. It's like a plant, because I was just about to talk about that. So let me go in here. So what it does is if I were to just press Command C again now, it's just going to copy the standard default set of settings. Again, it's not going to copy just color grading like I told it to. But if I go here into choose edit settings to copy, and so you can see this is the default set of things that it copies. So it doesn't copy auto settings, it doesn't copy crop or heal or masking, but it copies these other things. But maybe, by default, I don't ever want it to copy detail or optics. And in color, I don't want it to copy, white balance. I don't know, I'm making this up. But I have some specific set of things that I want it to copy when I press Command C, and I want that to be persistent so that I can just press Command C and have it do what I want, grab the settings that I want, and not have to come in here and specify every time. I can go up here and choose set as default.
Okay.
And then hit copy. And now Command C will copy every time, will copy those settings that I just specified.
Perfect. And I saw a reset button there as well. So that's
right. Yeah. Right. And then later, if I'm like, oh, that was a mistake, or even if it wasn't a mistake, but I just want to get it back to defaults, I can say reset default. And so now it's back there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that can be a great kind of workflow aid. And as long as we're talking about kind of specifying cool custom edit related workflow enhancing things, let me mention one other thing. This is not new to this release, but it's newish and pretty handy. And that is that you can specify edit settings that photos should have when they first are imported into Lightroom. So, you do that by specifying a preset that gets applied to all photos when you import them. So if I look here in preferences and I go to import, I have this raw default option here. And it just applies to raw photos. It doesn't apply to JPEG or TIFF or PNG or whatever other format you're importing. But for raw photos that you're bringing in, you can specify a preset for it to use. So you have a few different choices. One is the Adobe default. One is camera settings. And what that means is that a lot of different cameras have kind of looks that you can apply in camera. And it varies depending on the manufacturer, but they might have, you're in your Canon camera and maybe it has a portrait look or a landscape look or whatever it might be. Those, because raw files are just all the raw data off the sensor and don't have any edits, those aren't applied to the raw files, but they're applied to JPEGs that the camera would render. But what Lightroom can do is it can emulate those settings that you chose. So if you're in your camera and you choose, the landscape look in your camera, and then and then you're shooting raw, when you import those photos into Lightroom, if you set camera settings as your raw default for import, it will look at those raw photos that you're importing and say, oh, you used the Canon landscape look when you were capturing these photos. So I'm going to apply that look to these photos here within Lightroom, non-destructively, of course, using the Lightroom edit settings, or actually using profiles. So that can be cool. But then the other thing you can do is you can choose any preset that you have and have that preset automatically applied to all photos that import into Lightroom. Now, I probably don't want some, fancy kind of look applied to all my photos. But what I do like to have is I do like to have chromatic aberration correction and lens profiles applied to every photo that I import into Lightroom. And so I select a preset that does that. So every photo I bring in, I'll hit done here, and we'll go and look down here in optics. So every photo that I import will have chromatic aberration removal applied, and will have enable lens corrections applied. So I don't have to, those are just things that I want on every photo, and I don't want to have to come in here and manually check those checkboxes for every picture that I import. So now that will be done for me automatically at the time of import after I've set that preference there.
Okay, awesome.
And let me mention one other thing we talked about. It's related to both of these things we just talked about. We talked about specifying which edit settings you want to copy. We also talked about these presets here that do just very specific things, like only control these two settings. When you create a preset, which we'll look at doing in just a moment, you can specify which settings you want included in that preset. So presets don't have to change, every one of these settings.
Oh, perfect. So and that was the question I was going to ask too, about presets, as far as creating and saving presets. So we're already navigating in that direction.
We are. We're moving. We're moving right along there. So let's see here. We'll go to this one, and I don't honestly know what I want to do with this photo, with editing this photo, and that is something that I often use presets for. So I have to confess, I'm not a big preset person. For me, most of the time, I feel like I'm like, each of my photos needs individual love and needs a little bit different, kind of settings. I think presets can be a lot more useful from a workflow standpoint. If you're doing, maybe you're doing, 100 headshots today and all in the same lighting, and, and you want to just have a consistent look across them. And, it can be really handy for those sorts of workflow things. When you're working on a kind of a bunch of different photos in sort of an uncontrolled lighting situation, personally, I find I like to edit my photos individually, but one of the things that I still use presets for is inspiration. So if I look at this and I'm like, I really don't know what I want for this photo, I'll often go into presets. And what I used to do is look through the premium presets. I'm just going to close some of these groups, but I'll say, oh yeah, style vintage, that sounds good. And I would kind of roll over some of these and be like, ooh, I really like that one. Maybe I'll go that way. But now I often use recommended, because that, can really just kind of pull all sorts of different suggestions and ideas. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting kind of look, that sort of orange teal, show me some more like that to choose from. And then, oh yeah, look at so many choices.
Wow.
And so I can kind of go through these and say, okay, I really like that. I think it's too strong. I almost always think presets are too strong, so let me use the new preset amount slider to back that off a little bit. And now I've got this edit setting. Okay, so I can also do things like I can save this to my presets if I really like this one, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to want to use this on additional presets in the future. I can click save to my presets, like so, and I'll just go with the default name. And now I have it here over in yours.
Okay.
This was the one that I just did. I can also, you probably noticed this, I can see who this edit came from originally. So like I said, these edits are all being pulled from photos that have been submitted to the photo sharing within Lightroom, the Discover section. And I can say, oh, who did this edit? And I can view Noel's profile in Discover and see the pictures that Noel has has taken. And wow, and I didn't pre-plan
wow.
this one either. I feel like I hit a jackpot here. Noel's a nice photographer. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, okay. I honestly really like that because I do the exact same thing. For me in presets, when I first started, presets were easy because, I didn't know what to do with my image, and then I could just, pick something and go. So sometimes, like you said, it could be inspiration. Sometimes if you're doing batch editing, it just can be quick and easy. But I really, really love how you have so much access to not only whatever your style is, but you can kind of explore and get inspiration from other places as well. And that can kind of start to navigate and impact your work as well. So I think that's a really cool feature there to have more of that community aspect.
That's exactly right. I mean, looking at options in the recommended presets, which are being pulled from the Discover section, I get like ideas for directions to take a photo that I never would have thought of.
Yep.
Right. And we have another new feature that's related to that topic. Ooh, I wasn't going to get to it quite yet. No, let me stay on track. But I'll come back to it. But right now we're talking about presets and about making your own presets to enhance your workflow. So let's let me pick another photo here. And let's talk about making your own presets and how you can kind of, I don't know what I want to use here. Let's use, let's use,
How about?
Oh, did you want to pick one? You can pick one. I don't know.
Let's pick no, we can do the one you just pulled up. Okay. I was gonna pick it, then I realized, Idar, you're indecisive. So
it doesn't really matter for what I'm about to show, but well, let me actually do this because these two are sort of a little similar in their in their subject and their lighting and so on. So let's do. I'm going to use, let's say I edit this photo. I'll just start by clicking on auto. And so that moved a few kind of exposure sliders here and some of the color sliders just to kind of give the photo a nice sort of baseline starting point. Okay, great. And maybe I do some other stuff to this photo. Like I'm like, hey, I really want a vignette. I want a heavy vignette on this photo. I don't actually think that looks that great, but that doesn't matter for our purposes here. We just want something noticeable. Okay, I want a heavy vignette on this photo. And I want some color grading. And what I want to do is I want to really, again, I'm going to make this very noticeable so you can easily see the edit. I'm going to really warm up the highlights and I'm going to really cool down the shadows. And actually, as long as I'm here, and let me back this vignette off for a second, just so we can see this a little better. As long as I'm here, let me say, okay, so I've made the shadows very blue and I've made the highlights very warm. The look is there's too much blue here for me right now. Like too much of it is feeling like shadowy. What this balance slider does down here is it changes the midpoint. So if I move it towards the left, so I think everybody knows this, but what this is doing is it's tinting the highlights with sort of what's this warm orange color, and it's tinting the shadows with this blue color. What the balance slider does is it controls how much of the image is considered to be shadows and how much of the image is considered to be highlights. So if I move it towards the left, it's considering more and more of the image to be shadows. In other words, a pixel value needs to be kind of less and less dark in order to be considered a shadow. If I move it in the other way, it considers more and more of the image to be highlights. So what I want to do, because the overall look is looking a little too blue for me, is I'm just going to scoot the balance a little bit towards highlights so that a little bit more of that warmth comes out. Okay, that's great. This, by the way, the blending slider controls how much the highlight, midtone, and shadow areas bleed into each other. So if you think about I'm having, let's put another color here on midtones. Woo, that looks beautiful. So So now I have blue on the shadows and green on the midtones and orange on the highlights, and sort of how much do they overlap? So this is in the middle right now. If I take it all the way up to 100, they're kind of overlapping a lot. So the blue is bleeding into the green a lot, which is bleeding into the orange a lot. If I take it down all the way, then you can't even see that very much because I've just really gone over the top on that green. They bleed into each other much less. They overlap, those areas overlap much less. So that's what that blending slider does. And as long as we're in here, these are luminance sliders for each of these. So in addition to making the shadows blue, I can also make the shadows darker or lighter right in here. So, okay. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. Here's what I wanted to talk about. So I've done this big edit to this photo. Okay. Full acknowledgement that I haven't made this look particularly great, but that's okay. You're not here to see my artistry. You're here to learn about Lightroom.
Yes, yes.
So I look at this and I say, hey, I really like the color grading that I've done on this photo, and I want to save that color grading into a preset because I don't want to have to mess around with these individually every time I want to apply it. But I don't want all this other junk in the preset as well. Like, I'm not necessarily going to want this vignette on every other photo. I just want to be able to easily apply the color grading stuff. So when I make my own preset, I'll go here into presets. Let me just switch over to yours so we can see what happens here. I'm going to click plus to create a new preset. And when I do that, it gives me a choice of what settings to include, just like the choice I had when I was copying edit settings. So I'll just go ahead and I'll call this, I don't know, orange and blue. And you see that it's going into a group called user presets. I can change that if I want, but I'll leave that alone. And so I'm just going to select none, and then I'll go into color and I'll select color grading, which you saw me do just when I was copying settings from the video to the photo earlier, but I can do this when creating a preset as well. So I'll go ahead and click save now. And now you see a new group has appeared here in the yours section called user presets, and it contains the preset that I've created, orange and blue. So now if I go to another photo and I click on there, I get that orange and blue look, but I don't get any of the other stuff, the vignette or any of that other thing. So I can really easily save these kind of specific looks or things that adjust just particular settings as presets, which can be a great kind of workflow enhancement. And of course, I get the amount slider, so I can kind of ramp it up or down, even for those presets that I've created myself.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I also so then going back to when you were saving the presets, if I were to change where it says user presets to another name, and let's say I wanted to make a group of presets, I would just kind of create the first one, it'll create a new drop down menu, and then any other presets I wanted to make and add to that quote unquote group, I would just make sure it has the same name essentially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you would do that, something like this. Let's do, I don't know, I'll use vignette this time. So let's do a vignette, and then actually that's fine. And I'll do plus to create a new preset, and I'll call it, -75, because that's what I just set that preset to. And I want it in a whole new group. I'm going to make a whole bunch of different, I don't know, vignette presets or whatever. So I'll just create a new group, vignette, create. Okay, now they're being saved into this new group that'll be called vignette. I'm just going to select vignette. Okay. And so now you see I have this group called vignette here, and it has that -75. And then I could do, +75, and I want to make a preset of that as well. And that'll go right here into my vignette group. Let me make sure I select the right thing, which is just vignette. And so now I have, these two presets in here.
Perfect. And then I have one more question for
you.
If you wanted to go from, let's say, Lightroom to Lightroom Classic, will these presets automatically, I'm assuming they don't automatically sync. So will I need to export from Lightroom and then import my presets into Lightroom Classic?
Yes. So a couple things about that. The answer to the specific question that you just asked is yes, you would go up here and you would select, no, you wouldn't do that. Sorry. You would right click on a preset and choose export. So now I right clicked on my, -75 vignette, and I chose export, and I would save that to wherever. And then I would import it into Lightroom Classic. So fully manual process there if you wanted to transition these into Lightroom Classic. Within Lightroom, however, all of the presets that you create sync. So if I were to go over to Lightroom on my phone now and go into presets and go to yours, here's my user presets with my orange and blue that I just made.
Perfect.
And here's the vignette group that I just made with my vignette presets. Doesn't that look nice? So within Lightroom, those presets sync. So I made them just now on my computer, and they synced over to Lightroom on my phone. If I made presets here on my phone, they would sync to my computer. Let me pause for just a moment to talk about something completely unrelated, which is that the sun has moved around enough that it's bouncing off my desk and giving me an ominous kind of underlighting, I think, maybe. So I'm going to and you want to keep looking at my phone while I do this?
Yes, yeah.
Hang on. I don't even know how to do this. There we go. Office shades, close.
Oh, yes.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to try to get this, leave it open a little bit so I still get some light, but not. Okay, good. Woo! Wasn't that a nice little extra bonus you got there? All right.
Somebody, Paco said, the dark Ben rises.
Yes. Yeah, I'll try to avoid any Star Wars jokes, but okay. I have no memory of what we were just talking about. Presets and preset syncing.
Yes, and syncing over to the phone. So when you showed the phone, it automatically, the presets that you just created are automatically synced to your phone.
Yes. So, I mean, that is, one of the incredible things about working in Lightroom, right? Is that it's just seamless across everything. If I went to another computer and, launched Lightroom, I would also have those presets there. And, if I dropped my computer and my phone and every device I own into the ocean and went and bought a new one and installed Lightroom and logged in and launched it, all of my photos are there. All of my presets are there. It's very cool.
And then there was one more question. Somebody asked, could these presets be exported to Photoshop ACR? I'm assuming it's the same process. You would just export and then import again. That's
correct. Same process there. These edit controls in Lightroom and Lightroom Classic, of course, are identical to the edit controls in ACR. So yeah, any preset that you made in Lightroom could be used in ACR and vice versa. And you would have to export it, as we just showed, if you created it here in Lightroom and wanted to bring it into ACR. If you had a preset that you made in Lightroom Classic or in ACR, or some preset that you got off the internet from a photographer you like or something like that you wanted to bring into Lightroom, that's just right up here, import presets. And so then you would just go ahead and find that preset wherever you'd saved it on disk and import it into Lightroom. And of course, once you had done that, it would sync across the Lightroom ecosystem and you'd be able to use it on your phone and so on.
Perfect. I just love how quickly everything syncs. When things sync, it just makes your life so much easier, quicker. You don't have to wait. It was literally an automatic process between what you had on your desktop and your phone. So I just think that response rate is really great as well.
Yeah, it's very, very handy. Okay, so I've done this. I have a lot of pictures actually that let's go down here because I have a bunch that kind of look the same, that were all shot on a very flat, overcast day, very flat lighting. And so let's talk about kind of batch editing across a group of photos that look sort of similar. Let's use this basketball court here. And actually, I'll start on this one. This basketball court I think hasn't been used in a while. Okay, so let's talk about our batch editing. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm just going to get this photo looking the way that I like, and then once I do, I have a couple other pictures here that are very close to it in terms of their lighting and color and everything. And so those edits will transition really well, I think, and I don't want to have to, manually edit each of them. So let's start with this one. And the first thing, and I'll just really quick go through sort of what my edit workflow might look like. I definitely tend to kind of feel my way toward an edit with a photo. I know there are people who are like, I know exactly what I want and exactly how to get there. And I'm a little bit more like,
I just kind of play around. I do the same thing.
Yeah, great. So the first thing I think when I look at this is I want to crop in on it a little bit. So I'm going to just go into crop. I'm going to keep the aspect ratio the same. So the aspect ratio is locked there. That's fine. And I'm just going to kind of drag in a little bit, and same over here. And that's kind of, and actually, you know what? And as I'm doing this, and this is me feeling my way towards an edit, as I'm doing this, I'm like, I see something else I need to take care of first. And I'm just going to reset that crop, and I'm going to back out. And what I want to take care of, and this is going to be easier to do before I crop, is I don't know what this is, but I don't like it. And I don't know what this is, but I don't like it either. So let me just take those out. So I'm going to go into heal. I'll get my brush size there, and I'll just kind of, great. Perfect. And then I'll do the same over here.
And then we have another question as well, back towards the presets. Can you import presets from Lightroom Classic, ACR, into Lightroom using the mobile app, or does it have to be via the desktop app?
Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, I have to say that I have to get back to you on that. I believe the answer is that, I don't want to say something that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure that in Lightroom on the phone on iOS, you cannot import presets, but I think maybe you can on Android, and it just hasn't quite come to iOS yet, but I'm actually not 100% sure. I know it's not on iOS. Okay. But I'm not 100% sure about Android. I think maybe you can. So apologies for not knowing the exact answer to that. But you, at least in the case of iOS, at the moment, you'd have to import it on desktop. And then they would sync over.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I did that healing, and I got rid of those things that I thought were a little bit distracting. There's also kind of this is a little trickier because it's got this line and sort of identifiable stuff around it, but I don't know if it bothers me, but maybe it does. So let's see what we can do here. And I'll just kind of go over that, and it did not get that quite right. So let's just move. Let me move that off of there so I can see better. That's pretty good. Okay. Now I'm going to crop it. So let's just tighten it up a little bit closer. I don't want to lose everything around the side. I like all the trees and stuff, but I want it a little bit closer on the court. Okay. And then the next thing is I look at this and I'm like, well, this is not quite square. Like I want it to be really squared up. You know, I want these lines to be perpendicular, horizontal, vertical. They're close. They're not quite there. So I'm going to go down to geometry, and I'm just going to try, I'm going to use upright here, and I'm just going to try auto and see what that does. That worked quite well. I think maybe I could do a little bit better manually. So let me go to guided. And now I have this little tool here for guided upright. And what I do is I just draw on the image along whatever lines should be vertical or horizontal. So I'll do that here. I'm just going to use this yellow, right? Because the edge of the court is a little too rough, right? It's not a clean line, but these yellows, or even the white, I can use the white as a nice clean line. So I'll do that. I'll go along, and it gives, I didn't quite get that in the right spot. It gives you this little magnifier to help you kind of be a little bit more accurate. Okay, so I did that, and then I'll go and I'll do this one on the other side. Can I get the right spot there? So there we go. It straightened up those. Now I need these horizontal ones. So again, I'll do one along the top here, and I'll do this one along the bottom. Okay. And then I'll just dismiss that guided upright tool. Okay, so now I've kind of got that squared up and that looks nicer to me. And then I want to do, some kind of edit here. What do I want? I don't really know. I could go into recommended presets, but I'm just going to noodle around myself. I think I wanted a little contrastier. Maybe I want a little texture. Actually, I don't think I really like that. So I'm going to just do clarity, which is working better for this photo. And maybe the shadows could be warmed up. Ooh, not like that though.
Oh, that's a nice color.
Okay, so I think this looks okay. Well, let's not worry about the aesthetics too much. But I think I like it. It's fine. So I want this look on my other photos of the court. Now there are certain things that I obviously don't want copied, like the healing and the because that's going to be different for each one, and the geometry. So when I copy these settings, I'm going to make sure I copy just what I want. So I'm going to go into choose edit settings to copy. And actually it looks like the defaults are going to be what I want. So crop is omitted, heal is omitted, geometry is omitted. That's great. So I don't even need to worry about that. I can just press Command C and I've copied those edit settings and I'll select these two photos. And you know what? These are all kind of similar too. So while I'm at it, I'll just do those as well. And I'll press Command V. And now I've applied that edit to all of those photos. So quick kind of batch edit on those. I'm not sure that that'll totally work on my video because the video is much kind of brighter and lower contrast. So I think I'll probably need to do some custom editing on the video, but I'll just use it as a starting point, as a try. So Command V. And yeah, that didn't really work out. So let me, I'll keep it here. I'll keep the kind of, color grading stuff that it did and so on, but I'm going to try to do some additional sort of edits here as well. To get the video looking a little more like the photos. And it's tricky when, if the starting point of the two of them are so different. Hey, there's me.
Oh, I was gonna say, who's that?
Yeah, that's me. There's me.
Is that your vest?
That's my vest. There's my vest so that I look official. Yeah. Yeah, we talked yesterday about how if you just wear a reflective yellow vest, you look like an official person.
Yeah, no one's gonna bother you. You can go anywhere.
Yeah. So we also talked a little bit, and I won't repeat all this today, but we talked a little bit yesterday about drone safety.
Yes.
And please always be safe and legal and polite when you fly. Okay. Great. I think this is. Am I in the ballpark? That's even darker and warmer. So let's make this darker and warmer. And yeah, that's pretty good.
Yep.
Great. I'll go with it. Okay. We also talked about this yesterday, but I'll mention it again here just now because this video could probably use it, which is that you can trim videos, right? So let's see where this goes here. I'm just playing now and I probably don't want myself in that video. So maybe I would start it somewhere around there. Let's see how that goes. So I'll just go into trim here. The endpoint is already where I want my or rather the playback head is where I want my endpoint to be. So I'm going to press Option I to just set the endpoint to where the playback head is. I like to do it that way. You can also just grab the trim handles here and kind of do that wherever you want. Okay, let's see what that looks like. So now we're it looks great. I think it's too long. I think we probably don't need it any longer than about that. So I'm just going to go back in and, kind of trim that even way more down. And I'm just going to hit Option O to set the out point to where the playback head is. Okay, now we've kind of made our video look nice and trimmed it down to where we want.
Yes.
So that's a little bit of batch editing using copy and paste across multiple photos. We did it on all of these photos here, kind of all giving them that same look. And then sometimes people ask, can you apply a preset to a bunch of photos at once? And the answer to that is no. But with everything that you already know and that we've been over today, of course, if you realize that, well, you could do it with a two-step process. So you can't do it all at once, but, you know, I could go in and I could, you know, kind of apply the preset. I could apply a preset, and then I could copy the edit settings from the photo, and then I could, you know, paste it to other things. And so it's kind of a two-step thing there, but it's still relatively quick as well. Apply the preset, then just hit copy and then paste to the other photos. So pretty nice there. I was, sorry. Were there any? No, you're good. You keep going. Sorry. Okay, great. So that is a lot about presets. I'm just looking at my notes here because I want to make sure I didn't miss anything about that. And then, yeah, that's looking good. So I think I'm going to talk a little bit about sharing. Can you give me, I know we have some, apologies, I'm forgetting what it's called. We're going to take a look at someone's work. Yes, we have Artist Spotlight, and that's going to be in about 19 minutes. So I will let you know as we count down. We do have a countdown that is on the live stream now, so y'all can look forward to that. But I will make sure that you know, Ben, when we're getting closer to that, so that way you can be aware. But about 18, 19 minutes. Great. Okay, let's talk about sharing. So, and let's talk first about sharing from mobile and kind of the simplest case, which is, you know, you've gotten something looking like really nice in the way that you like it, or maybe it's even a video now. Of course, you just have the share button and you tap on share to, and then, oh, you know what, let's not do that with a video because I don't want you guys to have to wait for a video to render. So let's just do it with a photo, and I'll tap on share to. And then I can share to whatever, you know, kind of destination I want here. And this will vary depending on what you have installed on your phone. If you use Facebook, for example, you'd see that here, whatever. I have Instagram because I use that. So I won't go through with that right now. I think everybody probably knows how that works. I want to talk about a couple of other sharing opportunities within Lightroom. And these are applicable both to the computer and the phone. I'm going to switch over to the computer just because it's bigger and easier to see, and I can drive it with a mouse, but everything I'm showing you here is available on the phone as well. So we talked about, and let's go up here, let's pick this one. We talked about the Lightroom Discover section. So as I said, this is a photo sharing community built directly into Lightroom. I'm going to show you how to share to here, and I'm going to talk about a new feature that we have that's related to sharing to Lightroom Discover. So, oh, and here's a new feature. It's so little, I forgot to mention it. We have these little back and forward buttons that you can use to navigate now. It's pretty much like in a browser. So this will just take me back to whatever my previous state was. So back and forward buttons, new as of Monday. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, handy little thing. Okay, so I have this photo. I want to share it to Discover. So I'm going to click on the share icon here, and I'm going to choose share to Discover. So I'll click there, and it'll give me this whole interface for sharing to Discover. And so I'll call this US. That is not a U. USS Hornet. Describe your process. What did you do and why? Used masking to accentuate direction of light. We did that yesterday. Category, you have to pick at least one. The title is required. The category is required. Description is not required. But you have to pick at least one category. What is this? Oh, it's Arial. It's definitely Arial. Is there anything else applicable? Let's see. I don't know. Not really. Not really. Yeah. How about urban? Or is that not quite right? We're just going to leave it with Arial. Leave it with Arial. So we talked about save as preset earlier, where if when you're submitting your photo to Discover, this is enabled, then other customers can download your final edit settings as a preset. And actually, this is interesting. Now that I'm doing this, I'm wondering if it's even going to let me share this, and I'll talk about why in just a second. But let's explore first. Let's see if it works. Include location info. I do not want to include location info. That's fine. I do want people to be able to download my edit settings as a preset. Great. And then allow remixing. So this is the new feature that I wanted to talk about. And this is a really kind of interesting thing. And we talked earlier about how the recommended presets feature can really give you kind of inspiration for directions to take a photo that you would not necessarily have thought of. This is a similar kind of idea. So I can turn on allow remixing. And when I do that, other Lightroom customers who look at my photo in the Lightroom Discover section can edit my photo if they want. Now, my photo doesn't get saved to their Lightroom library or anything like that. Their edits do not come into my Lightroom library. It just lives in Discover. So, their edits aren't going to be overwriting what I've done to my photo or anything like that. But I'll be able to go into Discover and see, how other people have interpreted my photo and the edits that they've done on my photo and kind of directions they've taken it. So, likewise, as we'll see in a moment, I can also go in to Lightroom Discover and look at other people's photos and edit those to, experiment with editing on other types of photos, or to show off my editing prowess if I have any, or whatever I want to do there. So I'll enable that, and I'll click on share and
see if it submits. And while that happens too, there are two more questions.
Yeah.
Let me see. So one person asked, if you took a tour on that carrier, did you learn about the planes that were there? And if so, what jets were on it when it was in action? Did you? Or you were just flying your drone?
So on the day that I took these pictures, I did not take a tour. This was a few days ago. I actually have taken a tour of the aircraft carrier. It was many years ago, and I do not remember the answer to your question. What I do remember about this aircraft carrier, as I think I mentioned yesterday, is that this is the ship that picked up the Apollo 11 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, when they returned from the very first moon landing. So I don't have a huge interest in military stuff per se, although this ship is certainly very aesthetically interesting. But I do have a great interest in space history, and so this makes this ship very special for me. But I'm afraid I don't remember anything about the airplanes.
No, not a problem. But I see that the photo did post.
It did post, yes. So it is live. I could share out a link to Facebook or Twitter. And if people tapped on it, it would take them to my photo in Lightroom. So if they have, if someone were, on their phone and looking at Twitter and they tapped on that link and they had Lightroom installed, it would open in the Discover section in Lightroom. In the app. If they don't, it will open in the Lightroom Discover section in their web browser. Lightroom.adobe.com. I'm not signed in right now, and actually I don't want to for various reasons that will become apparent in just a bit. But if I was signed in, I could go to, actually even without being signed in, I guess I can go to Discover, and so they'd be able to see my photo here as well. So okay, so it is posted, and I'll just go ahead.
And with that, I have one more question. With Discover, can you only share pictures, or can you share video as well?
So at the moment, it's just
pictures. Okay.
It's just still photos. Yeah. Now that we have video editing enabled, then it would make sense for us to enable sharing videos to Discover as well. So we'll have to explore that possibility.
Perfect.
Let's see what this looks like if somebody followed that link. It just wants to launch Lightroom because I have Lightroom installed. So yeah. So let's just skip that for now. Okay. So here I see all of the photos that I've submitted. This is a demo account of mine, not my regular account. So this is the only photo that I've submitted. So people, anybody in Discover can see this photo now and would be able to download its settings as a preset if they wanted, or be able to remix. Yeah. And the reason I wasn't sure if it would post or not is that the photo has to be edited in order for you to submit it to Discover. So if it doesn't have any Lightroom edits at all, you can't submit it to Discover. And on this photo, the only edits that I did were with masking. If you look at all of these controls, they're all at the defaults. And so I wasn't 100% sure if it would count that or not. But obviously it did, so that's great, and that's correct. But I wasn't quite sure what it would do. But yeah, if you look at this photo, I mean, if we look at the before, there's the before view, there's the after. That was just with masking. There's no global edits done in here at all. And we did this yesterday, but it talked about how one of the things I like to do with my editing is kind of make a photo more of what it is. And one of the ways I can approach that is, well, what do I like about this? Well, I like the light, and I like the way the light's coming in. Okay, let's accentuate that. So we use masking to accentuate that direction of light. And when you compare it to the before view, you can really see how much more kind of dimensional and volumetric it looks now that we've just done that. And that was just with a couple masks, and that was it. And we didn't even do anything with any of this other stuff. Okay, let's go back to Discover. So let's look at the remixing from the other side. So we have a whole kind of remix tab here. If I want, I can go here and I can see photos that have been submitted where remix is enabled. And here is mine that was just submitted. So there's it's showing me the before after as I hover over it. I could save the settings as a preset, or I could click on remix and remix the photo, which not quite sure how that works since I'm me. Maybe I should try somebody else's photo.
Yes.
And let's see, here's one where somebody made it black and white. What would I make it look like in color? Let's click on remix. So I probably won't actually go through this whole thing, but just so that you can kind of see the workflow. So it says, okay, start. It says this, here's who the photo's by. And, when you're done, click next. And okay, I got it. And so I have all of the regular editing controls. Now you'll notice I'm not in like regular Lightroom, right? Like all of my access to my photos are all that stuff is gone. This is just the edit controls just for this photo. I'm within Discover here. This photo is not in my library, and nothing I do to it here is going to push into Reese's library either. So let's just go ahead and I'll be fast here. This needs a slight rotation. Okay. It needs to be, let's darken it down a little bit. The sky is super boring. So let's go into masking and choose select sky. And there it is. It's selected the sky. And let's darken the sky a little bit. And that's not really doing much of anything. So let's colorize the sky a little. Okay. And okay, let's go back to edit. I don't know. Let's do a vignette. That's fine. That's enough editing. You don't need to see me try to edit this photo. Okay, so I've done my version. And actually, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean to Reese. I sort of want to do something where you'll really be able to easily see my edit though.
I'm gonna add a mask.
What if I do like is that mean? I don't know. Reese can go and delete my remix later.
That's what I'm gonna ask. Can you delete your remix, or just or once you post it, does it stay there until the person that originally had the photo deletes it?
You know what? I don't know the answer to that.
I guess we can.
This is just a test. Sorry about the circle. Okay, post remix. I don't know how long this takes. Just a moment, I think. There we go. Your remix has been posted. You can view it in your profile. So these are ones that I've
Oh.
remixed. Here's the photo as it looked originally by Reese. So I click on it. Oh, and my edit is still processing, so it hasn't quite shown up yet. So let's go and back out of that, and let's look at other remixes that have been done. So these have been just remixed. So let's take a look at ones that have some remixes on them ready. So here is the edit from the original photographer who submitted the photo. And then these are all remixes that have been done by other people. So you can kind of click on any one of these to see what it looks like, but also to see the editing settings that were used in order to attain this particular look. Again, of course, you can download those edit settings as a preset. I could click on remix if I wanted to remix this myself. And if the original photographer looked at one of these and said, ooh, hey, and now I don't have this option because this is not my photo. But if the original photographer looked at this and said, ooh, I really like this edit, they have a button that they can click that saves this edit as a version for their photo. Okay. And then when they're over, in their own library looking at the photo, this is obviously not the photo because it's not my photo, but in versions, they would see that version and they'd be able to switch to that edit there in versions if they wanted to.
Oh, wow. There's so much collaboration.
Yeah.
Discover so much.
It's really exciting. Did you see, by the way, how I just clicked that back button a few times and got back here?
Yeah.
Yes, forward and back button.
Making use of that new button that's added there.
Yes. So we have all of this over on the phone as well. And I won't go through it all again, but just to show you really quickly. So here's the Discover section.
We have about 4 minutes into the artist spotlight, just for your awareness.
Okay.
At the top of the hour.
And can you remind me, how much time do I have after the artist spotlight?
Well, we could spend a couple minutes, and I would say about maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, that'll be plenty. That's great. So here's Discover. Here's the remix section in Discover. And look, here's a photo that's just been recently remixed. So here's the photographer's original. Here's the remix that you all watched me do just now. There's that circle that I made, so we really know it's me. Although, you know what? That was completely unnecessary because look, it's very tiny, but that's my picture down there.
Oh, okay. So you do know it's you.
Yeah, my little avatar picture, profile picture is right there. So that works. So let's see. Remove. Look at that.
There you go. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Remove. Done. Okay. So yes, I can delete remixes that I've done.
Beautiful. That's good to know.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any questions? I feel like the next thing I'm going to get into, I'm not going to quite be able to finish in probably 3 minutes.
Well, so then let's see. So we have no additional questions at the moment, but for y'all that may have been just joining, Ben has been going over all of the new features that released on Monday for Lightroom. And so if you missed yesterday's broadcast, you can watch the replay on YouTube and Behance. And if you're just now joining, you're probably wondering what's going on. That's what's going on. We're going over so many of the new features. So if you have questions, please go ahead and drop them in the chat box for us. That way we can make sure we get to all of our questions thus far.
I actually did think of something I can fit in 2 minutes. So if you want me to hit it real quick.
Go ahead.
And it's totally apropos to what we were just talking about. This is a new feature, again, new in this release that came out just this week, which is that you can now search in Lightroom Discover. So we have the search field up here. We talked about using search on your own photos. Now you can search within Discover as well. And so you can search for, topics that interest you, maybe I want to see monkeys. I don't know. Okay, great. Whatever it might be. But here's what I think is most important is you can search for people. So if I said to you, hey, I've posted tons of great pictures to Lightroom Discover, go, I only posted one because I did it just now and it's a test account, but I've posted tons of great photos to Lightroom Discover, go and check out my profile in Lightroom Discover, see my work. And they'd say, great, how do I find you? And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to have to email you this link, right? And but now I can just say, no, go and just type in my name and search for me. And so that actually works now. So you could type in Benjamin Warde, and there's my actual account right there. And so click it and they can see my profile and the photos that I've submitted. So that's a new feature in this release, is the ability to actually search through Discover. You can search for all sorts of things, but I think searching for people is the most important. You can actually find photographers you're interested in, friends you want to follow, and so on.
Beautiful work, Ben, by the way. And I really like your profile picture.
Oh, thank you. This profile picture was taken by Kelly Castro, who is a member of the Lightroom team.
Oh, wow.
So it's also a great representation of what I looked like almost 10 years ago. So it's probably time for me to have Kelly over and get a new picture.
It's still great. It's still great. But with that, we are ready for our artist spotlight. As y'all know, every Adobe Live, we always try to spotlight a different artist. And if there is anyone that you want to highlight, you can always submit your recommendations for creatives for the next artist spotlight. So if you're in Behance right now, you do see on the top of the chat box, there is an artist spotlight button. You can go ahead and submit somebody for our next artist spotlight. But for today, Ben, can you go ahead and show us who are we?
Yes.
Who's our artist spotlight for the day?
Let me make this fill the screen here. There we go. So our artist spotlight for today, Ben Simon Wren. Do you think I'm saying that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I hope so. I had an opportunity to look at these photos for 3.7 seconds before we started today's broadcast. So I had time to think, wow, these look great. And that's as far as I got. So let's take a look. Idara, what is anything catching your eye? Do you want to steer this?
I really love that. Hold on, don't scroll down yet.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth photo, is that water or what is that?
Ooh, Iceland aerial.
Oh,
it looks
wow.
like
it's the texture that's so beautiful. Wow.
Isn't that something? Very abstract.
Yes, very abstract.
This must be some sort of whoa. Ooh. Like a floodplain or something, or I don't know, all kinds of rivulets rolling down something.
That one caught my eye. I think all of the texture and the lines were just really, and the color, that blue is very, like, it smacks you in the face.
Yeah, and a really nice look that's been brought to all of these. Yeah,
yes,
for sure.
So that
I wonder how much creative liberty was taken there. What did this look like?
What exactly?
Yeah, but it's been really made into an image.
It's great. Beautiful. What else do we have?
Well, I want to take a peek at this. I love this misty misty look here. Yeah, that is. And see, when I look at stuff like this now, I wish we were in Lightroom Discover, because I'm like, I want to see the edits. What did he do here?
Yes.
You know, what did he do to achieve this? Is this negative dehaze?
This is beautiful.
It's really, really nice. Look at this. This is like there's werewolves out tonight.
Yeah, it's giving me Twilight, like a scene out of the movie. This is beautiful with the orange.
Yeah, so vibrant. And those things wow, that's cool. But yeah, I think this is just so atmospheric, this kind of look. It's just really, I really like that. Kind of pulls you in. What else is catching your eye here?
Let's see. Let's scroll a little bit and see what else.
This is interesting, sort of incorporating some text. This is interesting.
This is beautiful work.
Yeah, I wonder what this is. I wonder what this was for. This looks like a particular, an homage to Iceland.
Oh, wow. I'm not from Iceland.
No, he isn't either. This looks like some sort of kind of fashion or product.
Yeah, a fashion project that he might have worked on.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah, the way his work is just so abstract. The amount of texture and vibrancy in the work as well is just so beautiful.
Yeah, and it works. It works really well for this context as well too. I'm looking at this and I'm like, is this frost on a window? Is this a high frame rate, high shutter speed picture of splashing water? Like, what am I looking at?
What am I looking at? Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be so interesting to have him explain some of the some of that. And then the other photo that caught my eye, I think I don't do well with like reptiles and whatnot, but I think there was a gecko or something. What is that?
Oh, this right here,
yeah.
like an iguana or
iguana. Yeah, there
I don't really know either. A chameleon.
Oh, there we go. But it's the texture and these like up close detail shots that just make it just looks so beautiful. And usually I would like my skin will crawl, but like this is so beautiful.
I really like the lighting in this picture, the underlighting on it, and the beautiful reflections in the eye. Plus chameleons have weird eyes, which are cool, which can point in different directions, and it's doing it too. You can see that there.
Yeah, the lighting, and then again that texture all in the eye. Oh, that's stunning.
What is happening here? That is amazing. Yeah,
that is stunning.
And look at all the little droplets of water on its back, and
wow, absolutely beautiful work.
Yeah.
So make sure y'all give him a follow on Behance. It looks like Sam, thank you so much for dropping his Behance account there for us. So make sure y'all go ahead and give him a follow, show him some love, because this is absolutely beautiful. And I just always love photography in the sense of, or just artists that just take different routes with their work. And the amount of variety that he has as well is just beautiful, but still staying true to those very close up, detailed texture shots that really just bring you and draw you into the photo.
Yeah, speaking of variety in his work, I had something else I wanted to take a look at here. People. It looks like not a lot of people in his work are shown here, but this is what's happening here.
Looks like it's another work for another maybe brand or
some commercial exploration here or something. The graphic design work is really interesting.
Yes, the graphic design work is beautiful. I wonder if it's just, does he have like an about section? Does he just do photography or does he do some graphic work as well? What is this? Visual artist, nature, Huh.
He doesn't mention the commercial things here, but
was nevertheless beautiful work and a nice client list too.
Adobe.
There we go. Perfect.
Some more.
Oh, the deer.
Look at that. Now this is the editing on this one is really interesting. The kind of the color grading and the sort of ethereal light that's been I think emphasized. This feels like a little bit like a fairy tale to me looking at this one. That's really, plus there's a bird on a deer, so you can't go wrong.
Just resting there, chilling. That was definitely the right moment to capture. Oh wow, this is beautiful. Yeah, definitely a lot of wildlife work.
Yeah, these are amazing.
I wonder if for wildlife photographers, is there like a sense, how are you kind of getting the shots, but then also like staying safe?
Well, I did something like this once many years ago, and I did not get pictures like this, by the way. But I did go on safari many years ago, and it was basically stay in the truck.
Stay in the truck. It's probably the lens as well. The lens that he's probably utilizing can help him stay at a distance and still get these very spiders. Spiders.
Ooh, I love that. Oh, you're not a spider
I'm
fan.
not a nope.
We'll move on. We'll move on.
Nope.
No lizards, no spiders. Got it.
I had to close my eyes for that one.
How about parrots? I like this picture.
Oh yes. Parrots I can do.
That's beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
And here's now the deer is like, look, bird. Okay. I think we've had enough. Or maybe that look is for the photographer.
That might be.
I'm anthropomorphizing a little bit, but yeah. Wow, this is really some remarkable stuff.
Absolutely beautiful work, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And that is our artist spotlight for the
Sorry, we can't. Not ready to leave yet. Baby monkey.
Oh, the monkeys. And then is that an elephant on the next one? Because elephants are my favorite animal. Oh. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And I feel like, I need a screensaver out of this.
Well, you'll have to talk to Ben. And maybe he can set you up with that.
I'm gonna reach out. I'm gonna give you a call, Ben. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that is our artist spotlight. And as always, y'all, if you want to recommend somebody for the next one, you can do so by submitting their name for the next artist spotlight. But that is good there, Ben. I think we can move back to whatever else you want to cover in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, I wanted to, and here we are looking at my photo in Lightroom Discover in the web browser. Okay, we don't need to be doing that. Let's go back here to Lightroom app on my computer. And I want to talk about one more aspect of sharing. So we've really produced some quality edits today, haven't we? Sorry about that. Okay. We did some yesterday that looked nice. I thought this one looked nice. Okay. So we've talked about sharing in a couple different ways, just that simple share to social that we did from the phone. We talked about sharing to Lightroom Discover, which of course can be done from the phone as well, although we looked at it here on the computer. I want to talk about one more aspect of sharing, which is sharing out an album of photos. Now, if I were really, this album is obviously not really quite at the point where I would actually want to share it, but we're going to pretend that I've gotten it great and I'm ready to share it. So let's talk about album sharing. And there's some really interesting things that you can do with album sharing. Now, the most common thing that I do is I do something like, and I could actually, use something a little more polished as an example here. So I could say, hey, here's some of the highlights of my drone photography. And I want to share this. I want people to be able to see this, right? So, and I want people to be able to see all of the photos in the album. So I'm just going to go up here to this little share and invite button. So I'm in the album that I want to share. I'm in grid view. I have this share and invite button. I will click on that. And I get this share and invite dialog. And I have this big button here that says get shareable link. So I will go ahead and click that. And it generates this link for me. And it's set right now. You'll notice that this link access is set to anyone can view. All right. So I can copy the link. I can send it directly to Facebook or to Twitter. I won't do that now, but I'm just going to hit done here and we'll step out and we'll see what this looks like in the browser. So let me just go to Lightroom. Whoop. I should know how to spell Lightroom. There we go. Go to lightroom.adobe.com. One of the great things about the fact that everything that you do in Lightroom is synced to the cloud means that it's very easy to share work from Lightroom. I don't need to, export these photos to my hard drive and then upload them to, Flickr or Facebook. Nobody uploads to Flickr.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Sorry, that was a terrible example. I upload them to Facebook or wherever I want to share them to, because they're already on the internet, right? They're already in the cloud. So sharing is just a question of turning it on, right? And they're all in the cloud, but they're private, right? All this stuff is here. All this stuff is in the cloud, but nobody can see it except me. So I'm, here in the browser right now, I'm at lightroom.adobe.com. I'm not logged in. I can't see any of that stuff. But with this one, I just turned on, with this drone album, I just turned on sharing and I set the link to anyone can view. And you can see here, maybe I can magnify it a little bit for you. You can see that there's a little icon now on the album thumbnail that shows that sharing has been turned on for this album. And so now if I send that link to someone, they'll actually be able to see the contents of that album. So this is what it would look like if I sent it to anybody. They can look at the link, they can click on any photo to see it bigger, and I can easily share out my work that way. Usually for me, this means sending a link to, my mom. So I don't know how many other people want to look at my work, but it could be anything. and could be shared anywhere. So this is really neat. Okay, and I'm just looking at the time here. I have about 10 minutes. Is that right?
Yes,
okay,
that's right.
Great. I'm gonna talk fast because there's some cool stuff here I want to be sure to share with everybody. So the first thing I'll mention is I can customize the look of this a little bit. It's very simple. It's not like big web design or anything like that, but I can make a few changes. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go back into share and invite, and I'll go to customize. It's called drone. Maybe I'll call it my drone photography. The author is me. I'm going to change it from a photo grid to a one-up view, and I'm going to change the appearance from dark to light. And so it's just a few kind of simple options that I have there. I'll click done. I'll go back to my browser. Let me do a refresh in my browser here. There we go, My Drone Photography by Benjamin Warde. And now I have, they're all in this one-up view. It's a nice big view. I have captions for each of these. So those are showing underneath each of them. Okay, really neat. All right, let's take a look at some of the other options here. People can, and how am I going to do this? Okay, yeah, I know how I'm going to do this. People can comment on these photos. So let's say somebody really likes this one. So if I click on it, and now I'm just looking at this photo, I have this info button over here that tells me a little bit about it. Copyright Benjamin Warde, and a little bit about the file. But I also have this comment button. And it says sign in to comment. So I can look at these photos without needing to sign in. But if I want to comment on photos, I need to be signed in. Now, I don't need to be an Adobe customer. I can use a free Adobe ID, or I don't need an Adobe ID at all. I can sign in. Let me click sign in. I can sign in with a Google ID or a Facebook ID or an Apple ID or an Adobe ID if I have one, which I can create for free if I want, if I'm not already an Adobe customer. So no need to have an Adobe ID, but you do need to sign in with something. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sign in, and let's go back here to Lightroom on my computer here for a second. Does it say, hang on. I just want to show you. Okay, here we are. BenCC1. So this is the account I'm signed in with. I'm going to sign in on the web with a different account. So I'll be a different person in the web browser than I am in the computer. So Warde plus CC2 at. There we go.
And it's interesting. Let me see. Oliver said that they use Flickr.
Okay, Oliver, good for you. Good for you. I have nothing bad to say about
nothing
Flickr.
Nothing bad at all. Nothing bad at all.
Okay, so now that I've signed in, I have this leave a comment field here. I can also heart the photo. Oh, I like it. And so I can leave a comment. Wow, I really like these cranes. Okay, so now I've posted the comment. Well, as the album owner, as the photographer who took this picture here back in Lightroom on my computer, I can see the comments that people have left in these shares. And I'll also get notifications of them. So the notifications are batched up a little bit. So it's about, I think about a minute has to pass before a notification would come in. So it hasn't shown up yet. It will show up here. I'll get a little blue dot on my notification icon up here, and I click it and I'll see, oh, BenCC2 liked this photo. It has shown, let me get my magnifier again. You can see on the photo now, it has got these little icons, a little comment icon and a little heart icon indicating that there's likes and comments on that photo. So I select the photo, and here in Lightroom, I have this comments panel as well. So I'll open it up and I can see the comment that somebody left here. Wow, I really like these cranes. So I can say, thank you, and post a reply. And if anybody were looking at this, in the web browser, excuse me, I'll do a refresh, and it hasn't quite come through yet, but in a moment, they would see my reply as well. So this is just kind of general, sharing. But you can imagine that I could also use this for a client, right? I could share to a client. I could be like, hey, here's the selects, pick the ones you like, or tell me what you think. Let me know if you have any feedback. Now, if I'm sharing with a client, I probably don't want anybody else to be able to see the images. So here in sharing, instead of anyone can view, I can change it to invite only. So I'll hit done there, and let me go back here and I'll do my refresh. This album is private. So it's invite only. So nobody can see this right now. I haven't invited anybody. So then here in Lightroom, I could invite, just my client. So, my client is Warde plus CC2. And I can say invite, email sent. Okay, done. And so now I'm not actually going to go through and do this. Or I don't know, I could. Do I have time? Ooh, it's getting close. It's getting close. I think there's time. Oop, that is absolutely not the application I wanted. Microsoft, your icons look too similar. Well, not really. I just want to blame someone other than myself. Okay. Outlook, there we go. So that invitation email will show up, or that invitation will show up in my email. Is that doing anything? Oh, geez. Okay, maybe I'll talk through it. And I'll get this invitation, right? Via email, and I'll accept the invitation. And once I've accepted the invitation,
then you'll be able to view.
Then I'll be able to see. So here it is. Ben CC Warde 1 invited you. Great. Let me view the album. Oh, Prakey, that's going to open Safari, which I don't want. Let's close Safari. Let me just copy the link because I'm using Chrome for this demo. Paste. So now I can see it, right? And up here it shows me profile pics for the people who are invited to this album who can see it. So there's me as the original owner, and then there's this account that I've invited. And so now I can see them, and I could say, I could leave comments and say, make this darker or whatever at the client. And so I'll get client feedback right within the comments section here in Lightroom. So very cool. Okay, let's talk about a couple other things that you can do. If you want, you can allow JPEG downloads. So I could allow my client to download those photos as JPEGs if I wanted.
That's a good point. I was going to ask whether that was going to be the case.
Yep.
Can you only do that in the invite only state, or can you do that both in anyone can view?
You can do it in both.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can turn on downloads just in the anyone can view state as well. Let's take a look at something else. So that was inviting maybe a client to look at things. I could also, and I have these, so when I typed in the email address here to invite, and I have these buttons for granting different permission levels to this person who I'm inviting. So when I invited this account, I just had it here at can view, but there is also can contribute. So, so I could have clicked that, and that would allow this invited person to both see the photos that are in the album and also contribute photos to the album. So you can imagine a scenario where maybe you have multiple photographers working on a project together, or maybe something way more informal, just friends at a party, and or on a trip together, and or a family reunion or whatever, and everybody wants to be able to kind of pile photos into a unified location. You can invite people to contribute, and so they can contribute photos to an album as well. And then you also have this third permission setting, which is can edit. So I can change the permissions for any of these accounts that have already been invited. So I'll change Ben CC2 Warde to can edit and contribute. Okay. And now that account has the ability to edit the photos in this album. So you can imagine a wedding photographer, for example, who maybe works with an editor. A wedding photographer could put the photos from a wedding into an album, share that album with their editor with edit permissions turned on for that editor. That editor can work on those photos within Lightroom. They're working on them just as if they were their own photos. They can work on them within Lightroom, and those edits show up back in the photographer's Lightroom library.
Got it. So does it save it as a version like you were showing before?
That's exactly what it does. Perfect. So, and we have what about a minute? I don't know if I can do it this fast, but let's try. And you just cut me off when you need to. Okay. Okay. Here's a photo, and now look at this edit. And I'm still in the web browser here, by the way. So I don't have to do this in a web browser. I could, if I were, if I'd been sent an invitation to edit, I could be doing this in the regular Lightroom application. But because I only have the one Lightroom application on my computer and I'm signed in with this account, if I want to use a different account, I'm doing it in the browser here. So now I can, make edits to the, that's just really, I just want to make an edit that you can easily see. Okay, so I make this edit to this photo. Great, okay. Oop. Did I need to like click on anything? I don't use editing in the web browser very often. So, okay, there it did it there.
And then it saved it.
And right, it saved that edit. So now we'll see how long there it did it. So now I'm back. I'm the owner of the photo, the owner of the album back here. That edit has come here into my Lightroom. And it's been edited by this other person. And if I open it up and I go into the edit controls and I look at versions, and I go to auto versions, there's my edit that I'd done originally. And here's the edit that was just done by Ben CC2 Warde. So if I say, oh, you know what, I don't actually like that edit that my collaborator did, I just switch back to my edit. Or maybe I invited multiple people to edit, then each of their edits would be in here with their name on it. So I could switch, I know who did what, and I could switch between their edits. So collaborative editing within Lightroom. Very, very cool. Am I at time?
We're at time, Ben. We are at time. We covered so much in these 2 days of live. And if y'all missed anything, I mean anything at all, please go ahead and rewatch the live on either YouTube or Behance. I want to say thank you so much, Ben, for your time and for taking us through all of these new features. And want to remind y'all that you can definitely stick around for the Lightroom Bootcamp with Aaron Nance, immediately followed by photo editing on mobile and desktop with Lisa Carney. And then as a reminder, in recognition of Juneteenth, Adobe Live will not be streaming on Friday. So I am really, really excited about Lightroom. I'm going to be going in and tweaking around with it myself. I hope y'all will do that. But again, thank you so much for your time, Ben. And I hope the rest of y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Adara.
Of course. Bye.